The galaxy had long watched humanity with mild curiosity, like a scholar glancing at an odd insect in a jar. Humans were clever, yes. They built fast ships, told strange stories, and laughed even when things went wrong. But they were small. Their worlds were few. Their voices barely reached beyond their own cluster of stars. To the great powers of the Cathari hegemony, the vast alliance of a dozen ancient species, humans were harmless. Useful perhaps as traders or laborers, but never a threat. Never a mystery worth solving. That changed on the day every human vanished. It did not happen with fire or fury. No war cries echoed across comms channels. No last transmissions crackled with panic. One moment, human colonies buzzed with life. Children ran through parks, factories hummed, freighters docked at orbital stations. The next, silence. On the mining moon of Vexus 7, a Cathari patrol ship drifted near a human outpost. Its sensors showed power still flowing through the base, lights on in the mess hall, coffee steaming in mugs. But no movement, no voices. The patrol captain, a grizzled veteran named Drell, ordered a boarding team. They found the place empty. Doors stood open. A child's drawing fluttered on a desk, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Outside, footprints led away from the airlock, and simply stopped at the edge of the landing pad, as if the people had stepped off into nothing. The same scene repeated across hundreds of worlds. On the trade hub of Orland's Reach, humans had been the backbone of the market. Now stalls stood untouched. Fresh fruit rotted in baskets. A music box played a soft tune no one heard. Security drones recorded the last moments. Humans walking calmly down the streets, not running, not speaking, just leaving. They boarded shuttles that launched without clearance, vanished into the sky, and were never seen again. The Hegemony Council convened an emergency session. Alarms blared through the crystalline halls of their capital station, Zenthera Prime. Commanders demanded answers. Scientists ran simulations. Spies scoured data logs. Nothing made sense. There had been no warning, no build-up, no signs of plague, rebellion, or invasion. It was as if humanity had decided all at once to pack up and go, without telling anyone where. Panic spread faster than facts. Some species claimed it was a trick. Others whispered of divine judgment. A few feared it was the start of something worse, a prelude to war. But the truth was simpler and far stranger. Humans were just gone. Only one place remained untouched by the silence: Earth. The Hegemony sent their fastest scout vessel, the Iron Finch, to investigate. Captain Drell, still shaken by what he'd seen on Vexus 7, volunteered to lead. As the ship dropped out of warp above the blue-green world, sensors showed no weapons fire, no radiation spikes, no signs of struggle. Earth looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Cities stood intact. Power grids ran at low capacity. Satellites orbited silently, but no signals. No broadcasts. No replies to hails. The Iron Finch descended through clouds thick with rain, landing near what old records called Geneva, a city once filled with diplomats and dreamers. Drell stepped onto wet pavement, his armored boots echoing in the empty street. Rain dripped from broken streetlights. A bicycle lay on its side. A cafe window showed tables set for lunch, plates still warm. He walked for hours, calling out, scanning for life signs. Nothing. Not a bird, not a rat, not a single human heartbeat. Then he saw it. On the wide stone steps of an old building, once the heart of human unity, a single object glinted in the rain. A smooth, palm-sized crystal, pulsing faintly with soft blue light. No markings, no wires. Just waiting. Drell picked it up. It was warm. As soon as his fingers closed around it, the crystal flared once and went dark. Back on the ship, his science officer, a young Vereen named Tail, plugged it into the decoder. Hours passed. Then, on the main screen, symbols appeared, not in any known language, but in patterns that shifted like living code. Slowly, painstakingly, the ship's AI translated them. It was not a message, not a warning, not even a goodbye. It was a countdown. Numbers scrolled downward. 72 108, 71 59 59, 71 59 58. Tal stared at the screen, her large violet eyes wide. What happens when it reaches 0? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Drell had no answer, but as he looked out the viewport at the silent city below, a cold feeling settled in his gut. Humans hadn't just left. They'd left something behind. And whatever it was ticking. Across the galaxy, other species made the same discovery. On abandoned freighters in empty research labs, on derelict space stations, more crystals appeared, each showing the same countdown. Some tried to destroy them. The crystals vanished in flashes of light, only to reappear elsewhere. Others tried to speed up the timer. The numbers ignored them, counting down at their own steady pace. Fear turned to dread. The hegemony issued a galaxy-wide alert. All human sites were to be quarantined. No one was to touch anything. No one was to enter Earth's atmosphere again. But it was too late. The silence had already spread like a virus through the minds of 1,000 worlds. If humans, so loud, so stubborn, so full of life, could vanish without a sound, what else could disappear next? Tal stayed up all night studying the crystal's data stream. Buried beneath the countdown, she found fragments, maps, equations, star coordinates pointing to dead systems no one had visited in centuries. One phrase repeated in every file, translated imperfectly. You weren't ready. She didn't understand it, but she felt its weight. Outside the ship, Earth slept under gray skies. Rain washed the streets clean. Somewhere, a door creaked in the wind. A street lamp flickered once, then died. The countdown ticked on. 03, 71, 12, 02. No one knew what would happen when it hit 0. But everyone, from the highest counselor to the lowest dock worker, held their breath. Because for the first time in millennia, the galaxy felt small and very, very alone. Humans had walked away calmly, but their absence left a hole in reality itself, and no one knew how deep it went. 3 days after the countdown began, the first ghost ship appeared. It drifted into the busy shipping lane near the Cathari trade hub of Solran without power, without signals, without a single soul aboard. Its hull bore the faded logo of a human cargo company, familiar to every trader in the sector. Scans showed the engines cold, life support off, cargo holds empty, yet the ship moved. Not by thrust, but as if pulled by an invisible hand, gliding silently between active freighters like a ghost through a crowded room. When a salvage crew boarded it, they found nothing unusual except for one thing. In the captain's cabin, a small speaker played a soft, repeating sound. Not music, not speech, just a low hum, steady and calm, like a breath held too long. The moment they touched the speaker, the hum stopped. But back on their own ship, hours later, the same sound began playing through their comm system. Then their navigation. Then their dreams. That was how it started. Within a week, more derelict human vessels emerged from dead zones and forgotten orbits. Some were freighters. Others were old colony ships, medical transports, even children's school shuttles. None responded to hails. None carried bodies, but all of them broadcast that same hum or variations of it. And wherever the hum played, strange things happened. Navigation systems gave false readings. Time logs glitched. Crews reported seeing shadows move in empty corridors. Then came the whispers. At first, they were dismissed as static or sensor ghosts. But soon every species with a working comm array heard them. Faint voices speaking in their own languages, saying the same words over and over. You weren't ready. The phrase spread like wildfire. On the desert world of Corin, a priest claimed the voices were gods testing faith. On the icy moon of Nisa, engineers tore apart their comms gear, convinced it was sabotage. The hegemony declared it a human weapon, a final act of psychological warfare. But Tail, still aboard the Iron Finch orbiting Earth, knew better. She had spent every waking hour studying the crystal's data. The hum wasn't random noise. It was a key. Each tone unlocked hidden layers in the abandoned human tech scattered across the galaxy. When she played a specific frequency into the ship's main console, a hidden file opened, star charts pointing to systems long thought barren. One system, Epsilon 9, showed strange energy readings. Another, called Varel's End, had been erased from all official records. But human logs marked it as Project Cradle. Tail begged Captain Drell to investigate. He refused at first. The hegemony had ordered all ships to avoid human sites, but when the Iron Finch's own systems began humming the same tune, and when Drell woke up shouting a phrase in a language he didn't know, he changed his mind. They jumped to Epsilon 9. The system was dark, no sun, just a cold dead star and a single planet wrapped in ice. But orbiting the planet was a human station, massive, silent, and covered in strange symbols that pulsed when the hum played. Tael sent a probe. The moment it neared the station, the hum grew louder. Then, without warning, the probe's feed showed something impossible. The ice below cracked open, revealing a network of glowing tunnels stretching deep into the planet's core. Before they could react, the station powered up. Lights flared, engines whirred to life, and the station began moving, not away, but toward them. Drell ordered full retreat, but the Iron Finch's engines stalled. The hum filled the cabin. On every screen, the words appeared again. You weren't ready. Then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The station went dark. The hum faded. The ice closed over the tunnels. It was as if the planet had blinked. Back at Zenthera Prime, chaos erupted. The Iron Concord, a rival alliance, accused the hegemony of hiding human weapons. The Virine Collective townspeople demanded access to Earth. Fights broke out in spaceports. Ships armed their weapons. The galaxy, already shaken by humanity's disappearance, now teetered on the edge of war. All over whispers and ghosts. Tyle knew the truth was deeper. She cross-referenced the coordinates from the crystal with old human broadcast logs. Buried in public archives, she found a pattern. Every location marked in the data had once hosted a human peace initiative or cultural exchange. Places where humans had tried to share knowledge and been turned away, rejected, mocked. Had they left these keys on purpose? Were they testing who would listen? Her questions grew heavier when the countdown hit 0. It happened without fanfare. One moment the numbers read Q001, the next blank screen. No explosion, no flash of light, just silence for a full day. Nothing changed. The hegemony relaxed. Some called it a bluff. Others said humanity had simply run out of time. Then the stars began to flicker. Not all of them. Just a few at first. In distant systems, suns dimmed for a few seconds, then returned to normal. Sensors showed no solar flares, no cosmic events. It was as if reality itself had stuttered. Then came the disappearances. A mining colony on Gal 4 vanished mid-transmission. A hegemony patrol ship jumped to a nearby system and never arrived. Its last log showed the crew staring at a black patch in space that wasn't there before. Tal watched the reports pile up. Her hands shook as she pulled up the latest data. The flickering wasn't random. It followed the same pattern as the hum, and every time a star blinked out, the whispers grew louder. She played the hum one last time through the ship's external speakers, aiming it at Earth below. For the first time, something answered, not with words, not with light, but with a pulse, a wave of energy that shot from Earth's core and rippled across the solar system. Every abandoned human device within range activated at once. Satellites turned, power grids surged, and deep in the oceans, something ancient began to rise. Drell stared at the readings, pale. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Tyle whispered. "I just asked a question." The pulse didn't stop at the solar system. It traveled faster than light, touching every human-made object in the galaxy. Derelict ships powered up. Factories rebooted. Even the ghost ship near Solrin turned its nose toward deep space and vanished into warp. And then, for the first time since humanity left, a new message appeared. Not in whispers, but in clear, simple text on every comm channel in known space. "The door is open. Don't follow." Tail understood then. The countdown wasn't a timer. It was a test, and the galaxy had failed it. Now something else was waking up. Something that had been waiting in the silence between stars. Something that fed on fear, on chaos, on broken realities. Humans hadn't just walked away. They'd closed a door behind them. And in their absence, the galaxy had torn it wide open. The hum returned that night, louder than ever. This time, it didn't sound calm. It sounded like a warning, and no one knew how to shut it off. The galaxy broke apart faster than anyone expected. After the pulse from Earth, trust vanished. The hegemony accused the Virine of stealing human secrets. The Iron Concord seized control of 3 key jump gates, claiming they were protecting them from sabotage. On the trade world of Mirel, riots erupted when a human-made water purifier suddenly started broadcasting the hum, and then turned the clean water black. People screamed that humanity had poisoned them. No one listened when scientists proved the water was still safe. Fear had taken root, and it grew fast. Tyle watched it all from the Iron Finch, now hiding in the shadow of a dead moon. Captain Drell had gone silent, spending hours staring at star charts, his face lined with worry. Tail didn't blame him. She felt it too. the weight of knowing something terrible was coming, and no one would listen. Then came the first true loss. The planet Veskera, home to 2 million souls, blinked out during a routine solar flare. One moment its cities glowed under twin suns. The next, the system showed only empty space. Scans found no debris, no energy traces, no sign of explosion. Just nothing, as if the planet had never existed. The hegemony called it a sensor error, but Tyle knew better. She'd seen the same pattern in the human data, a slow unraveling of reality like thread pulled from a torn cloth. She dug deeper into the crystal's files. Buried under layers of code, she found logs from human scientists. They spoke of a quantum lattice, a web of energy woven into every human-built structure, every ship, every city. It wasn't just tech. It was part of them. Their biology, their machines, their very thoughts were linked to it. When they left, they didn't just vanish. They stepped out of this dimension entirely, into a place where time flowed differently, where matter bent to will. But their exit had left wounds in reality, and those wounds were bleeding. Tale shared her findings with Drell. He listened, then shook his head. Even if it's true, who will believe us? They think humans were weak. They'll never accept that we were the ones who held the walls together. He was right. Across the galaxy, factions fought over human ruins, tearing apart stations and cities for scraps of tech. Every time they forced open a sealed door or rewired a dormant console, the hum grew louder. Rifts appeared, thin tears in space where stars twisted into impossible shapes. Ships that flew too close came back wrong. Crews aged decades and minutes, engines running backward, memories scrambled. One such ship, the Dawn Chaser, limped into a Vereen port. Its captain, a grizzled warlord named Kor, stumbled off the ramp, his face lined with centuries of weariness, though he was only 40. He claimed his ship had passed through a rift near the old human colony of Helios 3. Inside, time had folded. He'd watched his crew grow old and die in a single breath. He'd seen things, shadows with too many eyes, voices that spoke in silence. Kor didn't care about politics or power. He only wanted answers. And when he heard rumors of a Vereen scientist studying human ghosts, he came looking. He found Tale on the dead moon, her small frame hunched over a flickering screen. She expected fear or anger. Instead, Kor knelt beside her and said, "Tell me what's really happening." She did. She showed him the logs, the maps, the truth about the lattice. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "Then we fix it." "But how?" Tale asked. "The humans are gone. The lattice is broken, and whatever's coming through the rifts, it's not stopping." Kor pointed to a star on her map, Erebus Hollow, a frozen moon orbiting a black hole. Human records listed as a final archive. If there's a way to seal the rifts, it'll be there. Getting there wouldn't be easy. The route passed through war zones. The hegemony had blockaded the sector, but Kor had a ship, one that had survived a rift. It was scarred, unstable, but fast, and he had nothing left to lose. They left that night, slipping past patrols under cover of a solar storm. As they jumped from system to system, the galaxy grew stranger. Stars pulsed out of rhythm. Comms filled with voices speaking in reverse. Once, Tell swore she saw Earth, not as it was, but glowing with golden light, humans walking its surface again, calm and whole. The vision lasted only a second before vanishing. On the third jump, they were ambushed. A hegemony cruiser hailed them, demanding surrender. Kor didn't answer. He fired first. The battle was short and brutal. His ship took heavy damage, but he used the chaos to dive into a nebula, losing their pursuers in the gas clouds. As they drifted, engines sputtering, Tell patched the hull with emergency foam. Outside, the nebula swirled in colors that shouldn't exist. Purple shadows, green lightning, silence so deep it hurt. That's when the rift opened. Not far from their ship, space tore like paper. From the gap came not darkness but light, too bright, too sharp. Shapes moved inside it, tall, thin, with limbs that bent in wrong places. They didn't walk. They unfolded. And they were looking right at the ship. Kor grabbed the controls. "Hold on!" He slammed the engines to full, tearing them away just as one of the shapes reached out. The rift snapped shut behind them, but not before Tale heard it. A sound like 1,000 whispers saying one word. Soon. They arrived at Erebus Hollow, battered but alive. The moon was dark, icy, and silent. No signals, no lights. Just a single tower rising from the frozen plains, its surface covered in human symbols that glowed faintly blue. Inside, the air was warm. The walls hummed with soft energy. At the center of the main chamber stood a pedestal, and on it another crystal. But this one was different. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Tail approached it. As her hand neared, the crystal lit up, projecting a figure into the air. A human, tall and calm, wearing simple clothes. The figure spoke not in whispers but in clear, gentle words. "You found us," it said. "That means the rifts have grown." Tail nodded, tears in her eyes. "We don't know how to stop them." The figure, Tail guessed it was a recording of a human leader, explained the truth. The lattice wasn't just a shield. It was a seal. Humanity had discovered beings from beyond space-time. Entities that fed on fractured realities. To protect the galaxy, they'd phased out of this dimension, taking the lattice with them. But their tech left behind was still tied to the lattice. Every time someone misused it, they weakened the seal. The only way to close the rifts, the figure said, is to rebuild the lattice. But it needs an anchor, a living mind to hold it together. Tael understood. Someone has to stay, to become part of it. "Yes," the figure said, "and once you do, you can't come back." Kor stepped forward. "Then I'll do it." "No," Tael said quickly. "You don't understand the science." "I do." They argued for hours. Outside, the sky darkened. Stars flickered. The rifts were growing. Time was running out. In the end, they made a choice neither wanted but both accepted. They would do it together. As they placed their hands on the crystal, the tower shook. Light filled the room. The last thing Tael saw before the world dissolved was Kor's hand gripping hers, and the calm, sad smile of the human projection, nodding as if to say, "Thank you." The galaxy didn't notice the change right away, but the rifts stopped growing. The hum faded. The whispers fell silent. Something had been saved, but the cost was just beginning. The moment Tal and Kor touched the crystal, the world around them melted. Light swallowed the tower. Sound vanished. Time stretched like taffy. Seconds felt like years, years like breaths. Tal felt her thoughts unravel, not in pain, but in quiet surrender. She saw memories flash. Her childhood on the Virene homeworld. The first time she heard a human song. The empty streets of Earth. Beside her, Kor's mind burned bright and steady, a flame in the storm. Their thoughts wove together not as two people, but as one purpose. Then came the lattice. It wasn't a thing you could see or touch. It was a feeling, a web of connection stretching across every star, every atom, every heartbeat in the galaxy. Human-made objects hummed in response. Abandoned stations lit up. Derelict ships turned their noses toward the void. The lattice was waking up and it needed a voice. Tel became that voice. From the frozen moon of Erebus Hollow, a new signal pulsed outward. Not a whisper, not a hum, but a clear, strong tone that cut through the static of fear. Every species heard it. On warships, on farms, in hidden bunkers, beings stopped and listened. The signal carried no words, only calm. It said, "And hold on. Help is coming." The effect was immediate. The flickering stars steadied. The rifts shrank, their edges sealing like healing wounds. The shadows with too many eyes pulled back, hissing into the dark. For the first time in months, the galaxy breathed. But the peace didn't last. The hegemony saw the signal as proof of a hidden human weapon. The Iron Conquered claimed it was a trap. Old hatreds flared. Fleets gathered at jump points, weapons charged, ready to strike whoever controlled the signal. They didn't understand. They only saw power and wanted it for themselves. Tael felt their fear like a physical weight. From her place in the lattice, she could see everything. A mother hiding her child in a bunker, a pilot arming missiles, a scientist trying to decode the signal. She wanted to speak, to explain, but the lattice didn't work with words. It worked with truth. And truth needed a body to carry it. That's when the human projection returned. In the tower on Erebus Hollow, the image of the human leader reappeared, clearer now. It looked at the empty space where Tel and Kor had stood and said, "They've done their part. Now the rest is up to you." The projection vanished. But on every comm channel in the galaxy, a new message appeared. Simple, direct, and signed with a human symbol no one had seen in centuries. It read, "The Echo Protocol is active. To save what remains, you must rebuild what was broken. Find the anchors. Activate the core. No one knew what it meant, except one person. On the edge of the shattered Vereen fleet, a young engineer named Jor had been listening to the signal since it began. Unlike others, he didn't fear it. He felt recognized, like the signal knew him. When the message appeared, he remembered an old story his grandmother told, about human beacons hidden in plain sight, disguised as ruins or junk. She called them Seeds of Tomorrow. Jor stole a small scout ship and jumped toward the nearest coordinate from the message, a dead asteroid belt near the ruins of Helios 3. There, floating among rocks, was a human cargo pod, rusted, forgotten but intact. Inside, he found not weapons or data, but a single chair wired to a glowing core. And on the wall, words in plain script: sit, breathe, believe. He did. The moment he sat, the core flared. Light shot into the sky. The lattice responded. A new thread formed, connecting Jor to tail, to core, to the silent web holding reality together. He didn't vanish. He stayed. But now he could feel the rifts, the fear, the hope. He became a node, a helper. Word spread fast. Others followed. A miner on Gal 4 found a beacon in an old human drill rig. A teacher on Morel activated one hidden in a school's old computer lab. Each person who sat in a beacon didn't gain power. They gave it. They lent their will to the lattice, strengthening the seal. But not everyone wanted to help. The Hegemony High Command sent a strike team to Erebus Hollow. They believed the tower held the source of the signal, and the key to controlling it. When they landed, they found the tower empty. No bodies, no tech. Just the chair, still warm. As their leader stepped toward it, the ground shook. The sky split open, not with a rift, but with light. And in that light, figures appeared. Not solid, not real, but clear enough to see. Humans standing calmly in old uniforms, watching. The strike team fired. The beams passed right through. The figures didn't react, they just waited. Then the leader heard a voice, not in his ears, but in his mind. It said, "You still don't understand. This isn't about control. It's about care." He dropped his weapon. For the first time, he felt shame. Back across the galaxy, the beacons multiplied. More joined. Not soldiers. Not leaders. Ordinary people, farmers, cooks, children, elders. Anyone who chose to sit, to breathe, to believe. The lattice grew stronger with every willing heart. But the cost was real. Those who joined the lattice couldn't leave their beacons. They aged slowly. They spoke rarely. But they watched. They held the line. Tail and core, now part of the lattice's core, guided them. They didn't command. They reminded. When fear rose, they sent calm. When doubt crept in, they sent memory. Of human laughter, of shared meals, of quiet courage. They showed the galaxy what humanity had always known. That strength isn't in weapons, but in walking away so others can stay. The final test came when a massive rift opened near Xanthera Prime, the Hegemony's capital. It wasn't like the others. This one pulsed with hunger. From it came not shadows, but silence so deep it erased sound, light, even thought. Ships that neared it simply stopped existing. The Hegemony panicked. They prepared to evacuate. But Jor, now linked to the lattice, knew what to do. He broadcast a single instruction to every beacon user. Focus on the rift. Give it your light. Across the galaxy, hundreds of people closed their eyes and reached out with their minds. Tile and core gathered their will like threads of gold and wove them into a single beam of pure intent. It shot from Erebus Hollow through the beacons and struck the rift. The silence screamed. Then it collapsed. The rift sealed with a sound like a sigh. The stars returned. Xanthera Prime stood untouched. In the aftermath, the Hegemony High Council met in silence. No one spoke of war. No one mentioned power. For the first time, they asked not, "What can we take?" but "What can we protect?" The beacons remained. The lattice held. And in the quiet spaces between stars, if you listened closely, you could still hear it. The soft, steady hum of a galaxy learning to breathe again. Tail and core didn't return. They didn't need to. They were in every calm moment, every act of kindness, every choice to help instead of harm. They were the echo, and the echo was enough. The galaxy did not heal overnight. Scars remained. Empty systems where planets once spun. Fleets still wary of old enemies. Whispers of the rifts that haunted dreams. But something had changed. The fear that once ruled every decision began to soften. People looked up at the stars not with suspicion but with quiet wonder. They had faced the edge of nothing, and someone had pulled them back. No one saw Tael or Kor again. Not in body, at least, but their presence lingered. In the hum of a working beacon, in the calm of a child falling asleep under safe skies, in the way strangers now helped each other without asking why. The lattice held not because it was strong, but because more and more chose to hold it with their hearts. Years passed. The beacon stayed active, tended by volunteers who took shifts like gardeners tending light. Jor, now older, gray at the temples, traveled from world to world, teaching others how to listen to the lattice. He never claimed to be special. "I just sat down," he'd say. "Anyone can do that." On Earth, the rain still fell. The city stood empty but not dead. Vines climbed the sides of skyscrapers. Birds nested in old courthouses. And sometimes on clear nights, travelers in orbit swore they saw lights flicker in windows. Soft, warm, like someone had just turned on a lamp. No one went down to check. They left Earth in peace as a memorial, as a promise. The hegemony changed its name. It was no longer an empire of control, but a council of care. Old warships were refitted into supply carriers for struggling colonies. Laws were rewritten to protect the weak, not just the powerful. Even the Iron Concord, once proud and cold, sent aid to worlds they'd once ignored. They called it the human way, not because humans were perfect, but because they had walked away so others could learn. Then came the day the sky sang. It started as a vibration in the deep void, felt more than heard. Ships across the galaxy reported their instruments humming in harmony. On Virine homeworlds, flowers bloomed out of season. On desert moons, wells filled with clean water overnight. The lattice was not just holding reality together, it was healing it. In the tower on Erebus Hollow, the chair glowed brighter than ever. Jor stood before it, feeling the pull in his bones. He knew what it meant. The final seal was ready, but it needed one last act, not of sacrifice, but of trust. He sent a message to every beacon user, to every world, to every being who had ever listened. Look up tonight. Remember them. As darkness fell across the galaxy, billions did just that. They stepped outside. They turned their faces to the stars. And in that shared moment of stillness, the lattice pulsed one final time, not with power, but with gratitude. From the heart of the web, Tile and Kor let go, not because they were tired, but because the galaxy no longer needed them to hold on. It had learned to stand on its own. The pulse spread like a breath. Rifts that had lingered in hidden corners of space sealed shut. Time smoothed itself out. Stars that had flickered returned to steady light. And in the silence that followed, something new began to grow. A quiet rhythm beneath the hum of the universe, steady and warm, like a heartbeat. No one saw the figures appear. Not truly, but many felt them. On lonely outposts, on crowded cities, in the quiet between heartbeats, people sensed a presence. Calm, watching, kind. They didn't speak. They didn't interfere. They simply stood at the edge of sight like guardians who had done their duty, and now waited to see if it had been enough. It was. The beacons powered down one by one. Not broken, not dead, just complete. Jor sat in the chair on Erebus Hollow one last time. He closed his eyes. He felt Tail's hand in his mind, Kor's voice in the wind. Then warmth, then peace. When he opened his eyes, the tower was dark. The chair was cold. But the sky above was full of stars, bright, clear, and unbroken. Back on Earth, a single flower pushed through cracked concrete in the old United Nations plaza. Its petals were white, its stem strong. Rain fell gently around it. No one was there to see it bloom, but it bloomed anyway. The galaxy moved on. New stories began. Children were born who had never known the rifts, the whispers, the fear. They learned about humanity not as a mystery, but as a lesson. That true strength is not in staying to fight, but in walking away so others may live. And sometimes, on the quietest nights when all the noise of the world faded, travelers in deep space would hear it, a soft sound, like distant footsteps on stone. Calm, steady, unhurried, they would pause, look out the viewport, smile, because they knew. Humans had walked away calmly, but their calm had saved everything.